Broken heart, I remember that night as if it happened only yesterday. The door slammed shut behind me, and I knew I was trapped. My uncle's eyes burned with anger, and beside him stood my own brother, whose face no longer looked like the brother I had grown up with. They had both cornered me. I screamed until my throat felt like it was tearing apart. My body shook with fear, pain, and confusion. I pounded against the walls, begging for someone to hear me, but no one came. The betrayal of blood was heavier than any wound on my body. I screamed until I passed out. And then, when everything went black, something happened that I still call my miracle. But before I tell you how it all began, let me introduce myself. My name is Sarah, I am 55 years old, and I am speaking to you from Texas, USA. Before I continue this story, please subscribe, like this video, and click the notification bell so you don't miss the next part of this journey. And tell me, from which part of the country are you watching? I love knowing where my family of listeners comes from. Now let's go back to where it all started, because pain never comes suddenly. It builds slowly like a storm before the thunder strikes. When I was a little girl, my grandmother used to tell me that family was supposed to be your safe place. She said a house built on love could withstand any storm. I believed her. I believed that even though we were poor, and sometimes food was scarce, love was the roof over our heads. My mother worked double shifts just to keep us alive. My father had left long ago, disappearing like a shadow. It was just me, my mom, and my brother Daniel. Then Uncle Tom moved in with us after losing his job. First, it didn't feel strange. Uncle Tom told jokes that made me laugh. He promised he would help my mother with the bills, and he did. He bought food and sometimes even brought home little gifts for me. Daniel, my brother, was always quiet, always watching. I thought he was shy, but sometimes his silence felt heavier than words. Life was hard, but I held on to Grandma's words. Until small cracks began to appear. One night, I overheard a fight between my mom and Uncle Tom. My mom was begging him to leave the house. "This isn't right," she said, her voice shaking. But Uncle Tom's voice was firm. "If I go, you lose the money. Who's going to take care of the kids then? You." The next morning, my mom's eyes were red, but she told me nothing was wrong. I wanted to believe her, but inside me, a seed of fear had been planted. Weeks passed, and little by little, I started noticing the change in Daniel. He was no longer just quiet. He was distant, angry, and sometimes cruel. He snapped at me over small things. Sometimes I caught him whispering with Uncle Tom in hushed tones when they thought I wasn't around. I didn't know what they were plotting. I didn't know the storm that was brewing. One evening after school, I came home to find the house unusually quiet. Mom wasn't there. She had picked up an extra shift. The air felt heavy. I walked into the living room and froze. Both Uncle Tom and Daniel were sitting there staring at me. Something in their eyes made my stomach twist. And that was the night everything changed. I tried to run, but the doors slammed shut behind me. The doors slammed shut behind me, and my heart pounded so loudly I could almost hear it echo in the silence of the room. Uncle Tom's hand rested on the doorknob, twisting it slowly as though sealing my fate. Daniel stood between me and the window, blocking any chance of escape. "Why are you both looking at me like that?" I asked, my voice trembling. Neither of them answered. Daniel's silence was more frightening than Uncle Tom's smirk. My legs felt weak, but I forced myself to stand tall. "Move. I want to get out," I demanded, though my voice betrayed the fear crawling through me. Uncle Tom stepped closer, and I instinctively stepped back until my back pressed against the wall. "You've always been Grandma's little favorite, haven't you?" he said, his tone mocking. "Always so innocent. Always so sure you're safe." "Stop," I shouted, my throat tightening. "What are you doing?" That was when Daniel finally spoke, but his voice was hollow, cold, like I had never heard before. "You should have kept quiet, Sarah. You should have stayed out of things you don't understand." Tears welled up in my eyes. "Daniel, you're my brother," I whispered. "Why are you doing this?" He looked away as though ashamed, but he didn't move. The betrayal in his silence hurt more than words could. I tried to scream, but Uncle Tom's hand clamped down over my mouth. The room spun. My voice was muffled, swallowed by the walls. I kicked and fought, clawing at his hand, but he only tightened his grip. Daniel stood there, frozen, watching me struggle. And then I blacked out. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on the cold floor. My body ached, but I was alive. The house was quiet again, as though nothing had happened. My ears rang, my throat burned, and every breath felt heavy. The shadows in the corners of the room seemed to laugh at me, whispering that I was alone. But then something unexpected happened. The old wooden cross that hung on the wall, a gift from Grandma, fell and landed right beside me. It startled Daniel so much that he ran from the room. Uncle Tom cursed under his breath and stormed out after him. That was my miracle. That tiny moment of distraction gave me a chance to crawl out of the room and lock myself in Grandma's old bedroom upstairs. My body trembled as I pressed my back against the door. I clutched the fallen cross to my chest, crying silently. For the first time, I understood the weight of Grandma's words. When the storm comes, don't forget who you are. Don't forget who holds you. Hours passed before my mother returned home. I wanted to tell her everything, but when I opened my mouth, the words wouldn't come out. My lips trembled and my chest heaved, but my voice was gone. It was as if fear itself had stolen it. That night, while lying in bed, I told myself it was over. I told myself they wouldn't dare try again. I convinced myself it had only been one terrible moment. But deep down I knew better. Deep down I felt the storm was only beginning. And I was right. Because the very next day, while my mom was at work again, I overheard Uncle Tom whispering to Daniel in the kitchen. His words froze my blood. We can't let her talk. If she tells anyone, we're finished. I gasped too loudly, and their heads turned in my direction. My heart stopped. The moment I gasped, both Uncle Tom and Daniel froze. Their heads turned sharply toward me, their eyes narrowing like predators spotting prey. My heart thundered so loudly I feared it would give me away completely. I didn't wait for them to speak. I bolted. My bare feet slapped against the wooden floor as I ran toward the staircase. Behind me, I heard the scrape of chairs and the thundering footsteps of two people who wanted to silence me forever. "Sarah, stop!" Daniel shouted, his voice breaking with panic. I didn't look back. I clutched the wall, forcing my trembling legs to move faster. My hands fumbled for the railing as I climbed the stairs two at a time. Halfway up, a hand brushed against my ankle, but I kicked wildly and managed to break free. "Don't let her get to the door!" Uncle Tom bellowed. I reached Grandma's old room and slammed the door shut, locking it just as their fists pounded against it. The thin wood rattled under the pressure. "Sarah," Daniel yelled again. "You don't understand. You'll ruin everything." Tears streamed down my face as I pressed my back against the door, my chest heaving. "Ruin what? My life? My trust? You already did that." The pounding stopped. For a brief moment, silence filled the house. I could hear my own breathing, ragged and broken. Then Uncle Tom's low, menacing voice came through the door. "If you open your mouth to anyone, you won't live to regret it." The words chilled me more than the night air seeping through the cracks of the house. Hours later, I finally crept out when I was sure they had gone to sleep. I tiptoed back into my room, clutching Grandma's fallen cross against my chest like a shield. I didn't sleep that night. I just stared at the ceiling, trying to imagine a future where I was safe again. The next morning, life pretended to be normal. Mom hurried off to work, kissing my forehead like she always did. "Be good, Sarah. I'll be back late tonight." She never saw the terror in my eyes because I didn't let her. My silence was my prison. All day, Daniel avoided me. His eyes were heavy, almost guilty, but he said nothing. Uncle Tom, however, acted as though nothing had happened. He whistled while making breakfast, his smile wide, his voice cheerful. But behind that mask, I knew there was a monster waiting for the right moment to strike again. And then the low came. For a brief time, things seemed calm. A whole week passed without another incident. Uncle Tom even left the house during the day to look for work. Daniel kept to himself, spending hours outside with his friends. I began to hope foolishly that maybe it was over. Maybe fear had stopped them. But storms don't disappear that easily. They wait. They gather strength. One Saturday night, Mom was called in unexpectedly for a double shift. She kissed my forehead and promised she would bring me something sweet from the diner when she got back. As soon as the door shut behind her, I felt the air shift. Uncle Tom's laughter drifted from the living room. Daniel's footsteps creaked on the stairs. The calm week had been nothing but a trap. And that night, when the house was cloaked in silence, I found myself face to face with both of them again. This time they didn't just want my silence. They wanted something else. That Saturday night still haunts me. The house was too quiet, too still. Every sound, the ticking clock, the creak of the floorboards, echoed like a warning bell in my chest. I sat in my room, hugging my knees, clutching Grandma's cross against my chest. I told myself I was safe as long as the door was locked. But safety in that house was an illusion. The knob rattled. My breath caught. Then I heard Uncle Tom's laugh. Low, mocking, chilling. "Sarah," he called, his voice sweet like poisoned honey. "Come downstairs. We need to talk." I stayed silent. "Don't make me come in there," he added, his tone sharpening. Then Daniel's voice came, softer, almost pleading. "Sarah, please. Just open the door." Tears rolled down my face. How could he, my brother? The boy I shared childhood secrets with, the boy who once held my hand when thunderstorms scared me, stand beside the man who terrified me most. I stayed locked in, my heartbeat thundering, until suddenly the sound that made my blood freeze filled the air. Metal scratching against the lock. They had found a key. I jumped to my feet, panic coursing through me. There was no escape. The window was too high. My eyes darted around the room, desperate, until they landed on Grandma's old wardrobe. I scrambled inside, shutting the door just as my bedroom door swung open. Through the crack I watched Uncle Tom step inside, Daniel trailing behind him. Uncle Tom's eyes scanned the room like a predator searching for prey. "She's here," he hissed. "I can feel it." Daniel hesitated near the bed. "Maybe she went outside." "Don't be a fool," Uncle Tom snapped. I pressed my hands over my mouth to silence my breath. My chest ached, my whole body trembling. I prayed silently, desperately, that they wouldn't find me. Minutes stretched like hours. Uncle Tom checked under the bed, pulled open the desk drawers, even yanked at the curtains. Then his footsteps grew closer to the wardrobe. My heart stopped. His hand reached for the handle. But just then the front door creaked open. My mother's voice echoed through the house. "Sarah? Daniel? I'm home early." Uncle Tom froze. Daniel's face drained of color. "Later," Uncle Tom growled, retreating. They both rushed out, leaving the wardrobe door untouched. I collapsed inside, sobbing with relief. That was the low. My small reprieve, my mother's unexpected arrival. She had no idea she had just saved me without even knowing it. But I couldn't tell her. I wanted to so badly. That night at dinner, when she smiled at me, I nearly broke. But the words stayed locked in my throat. I was too afraid, too ashamed. And so life pretended to be normal again. Mom laughed, Daniel sat quietly, Uncle Tom told stories like everything was fine. But beneath it all, I felt the storm waiting. And I was right. Because the next day, while Mom was gone again, Uncle Tom cornered me alone in the kitchen. His smile was cold as ice. "You can't hide forever," he whispered. And then he pulled something from his pocket, something sharp, gleaming under the dim light. The object in Uncle Tom's hand caught the kitchen light. A knife. My breath caught in my throat, my knees nearly buckling beneath me. He twirled it casually, as though it was nothing more than a toy. "You think you can run? Hide? Stay quiet forever?" he asked, his voice steady and cruel.
"No, Sarah.
"One way or another, you'll do what I want. And if you don't..." He pressed the blade against the wooden table, dragging it slowly so it screeched. "Then you won't live long enough to regret it." I couldn't move. My back pressed against the counter, my palms slick with sweat. My voice trembled when I finally spoke. "Why are you doing this? You're supposed to protect me." His lips curled into a twisted smile. "Because no one protects the weak, Sarah. The world eats the weak alive. I'm just teaching you before it's too late." At that moment, Daniel entered the kitchen. His eyes widened when he saw the knife. "Uncle, stop." But Uncle Tom only glanced at him. "Go back to your room, boy. This doesn't concern you." Daniel's fists clenched. For a second, I saw the brother I used to know, the one who protected me from bullies at school, the one who promised never to let anyone hurt me. For a second, I thought he would grab the knife and defend me. But he didn't. He lowered his eyes, turned around and walked away. The betrayal was sharper than the knife itself. Uncle Tom leaned closer, his breath hot against my face. See? Even your own brother won't save you. He pressed the knife flat against my cheek. Not cutting, just reminding me how close death could be. Remember that. Then, just as suddenly as he had threatened me, he pulled back, slid the knife into his pocket, and walked away whistling as if nothing had happened. I sank to the floor, my whole body shaking. Tears streamed down my face, but I made no sound. If I screamed, if I begged, it would only give him more power. That night, lying in bed, I clutched Grandma's cross tight against my chest. I whispered to her memory, to her wisdom. Grandma, what do I do? How do I survive this? In the stillness, I remembered her words. The storm won't last forever, but you must not let it drown you. Hold on. Hold on until the sun breaks through. For a moment, her voice in my heart gave me strength. I decided I couldn't stay silent forever. I had to find a way to fight back, to escape, to survive. But my chance came sooner than I expected. The next evening, I overheard Uncle Tom on the phone. His voice was low, secretive. She's breaking. She'll do what I want soon. If not, we'll make her disappear. My heart raced. Disappear? Did he mean kill me? I leaned closer to hear more, but my elbow brushed against a vase on the table. It tipped, wobbled, and crashed to the floor. The sound was deafening. Uncle Tom's head snapped up, his eyes locking onto mine, and in his hand, the knife gleamed again. The vase shattered into 1,000 pieces at my feet, and for a second silence fell. My breath came fast and shallow. Uncle Tom's eyes locked on me like a predator catching sight of prey. Well, well, he said slowly, slipping the knife back into his hand. Eavesdropping, were you? I stumbled back, shards crunching under my shoes. Stay away from me, I whispered, though my voice barely carried. He stepped closer, each stride measured, deliberate. I warned you, Sarah. I told you what would happen if you couldn't keep that pretty little mouth shut. I turned and ran, my heart pounding louder than my footsteps. I darted into the hallway, racing toward the stairs, but he was faster than I expected. His hand brushed against the back of my shirt, but I wrenched free and scrambled upward 2 steps at a time. Daniel! I screamed. Help me! His bedroom door cracked open. For a moment, hope surged in my chest. But then I saw his face, pale, frozen, guilty. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He just stared as Uncle Tom charged after me. I reached the top of the stairs and dashed into Grandma's room, slamming the door shut and throwing the lock. My chest heaved, tears blurring my vision. My hands fumbled through drawers, searching desperately for something, anything, I could use to defend myself. Behind me, the pounding began. The door shook under Uncle Tom's fists. You can't hide forever, Sarah. Open this door, or I swear you'll regret it. I pulled open the bottom drawer and found it. Grandma's old Bible, thick and heavy. It wasn't a weapon, but it was something. I clutched it tight, pressing it against my chest as if the words inside could shield me. Then suddenly silence.
No pounding. No footsteps.
Just silence. I pressed my ear to the door, straining to hear. Nothing. My pulse hammered in my ears. Slowly, I slid down to the floor, my back against the wood. Maybe he had given up. Maybe he had gone. Minutes passed and exhaustion overcame me. My eyelids grew heavy, and before I knew it, I drifted into a restless sleep right there on the floor. When I woke, the house was quiet. Sunlight filtered through the curtains. For a moment, I thought it had all been a nightmare. I tiptoed to the window and looked out at the street below. Normal, peaceful, safe. I let out a shaky breath. Maybe it was over. Maybe I was safe, at least for now. But when I turned back toward the door, my blood ran cold. There, carved into the wood with the tip of a knife, were words that hadn't been there before. The words carved into the wood stared back at me. You can't run. My breath hitched, and the Bible slipped from my trembling hands. He had been here. While I slept, while I thought I was safe, he had stood on the other side of that door and carved his threat into my world. I backed away, pressing my hand against my mouth to stop the scream clawing its way out. My legs shook so badly I thought they would give out beneath me. I couldn't keep this to myself anymore. I had to tell someone. That evening, when Mom returned home from her shift, I hovered near her, unsure of how to begin. She noticed immediately. "Sarah? What's wrong, sweetheart?" she asked, brushing a strand of hair from my face. The words lodged in my throat. But then I thought of the knife, the threats, the carved message. Tears filled my eyes. "Mom,
I'm scared.
her brow furrowed. Scared? Of what? I opened my mouth to speak the truth, to tell her everything, but just then Daniel entered the room. His eyes locked on mine, and his expression was a silent warning. My words shrank into whispers. Of the dark. I lied, my voice breaking. Mom sighed and kissed my forehead. You've been through a lot lately, baby. Don't worry, I'll leave the hallway light on tonight. I forced a smile, but inside I was screaming. That night, as the house settled into silence, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The carved words burned in my mind. I told myself I would find the courage to speak. Tomorrow I would tell her the truth. But tomorrow came, and fear wrapped its hands around my throat again. The low was that false sense of normal. For 2 days nothing happened. Uncle Tom acted cheerful, even helpful, fixing a broken chair and cracking jokes at dinner. Daniel kept his distance, barely speaking to me. I let myself believe maybe the threat had been enough. Maybe he wouldn't hurt me again. I was wrong. On the third night, I woke to the sound of my door creaking open. My blood turned to ice. I froze under the covers, praying it was just Mom checking in on me. But the footsteps that crept closer were too heavy, too slow, too deliberate. The edge of my bed dipped as someone sat down. A hand brushed my hair back from my face. And in the darkness, a voice whispered against my ear. The whisper curled into my ear like smoke. Did you miss me? My whole body went rigid. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I prayed it was a nightmare, but the weight on the edge of the bed was real, pressing into the mattress. Slowly, I turned my head. The faint glow from the hallway light revealed Uncle Tom's twisted grin. His eyes glistened in the dark like a wolf cornering its prey. I scrambled back against the wall, my heart hammering. Get out! I screamed, my voice hoarse. He only laughed softly, placing a finger against his lips. So you'll wake your mother. You wouldn't want her to know what a coward you really are, would you? Anger and fear twisted together inside me. If you come any closer, I'll tell her everything. I spat, though my voice shook. His grin widened. You won't. Because if you do, Sarah, it won't be me who pays the price. It'll be her. Do you want your precious mother to suffer because of your big mouth? The threat struck me harder than any blow. My chest tightened, tears burning my eyes. He knew exactly where to strike. For what felt like hours, he sat there, whispering venom into my ear. Reminders of his power, of my helplessness, of the silence he expected. When he finally left, the door creaking shut behind him, I curled into a ball and sobbed until exhaustion stole me away. That was the highest peak of terror. But then came the low. The next morning, sunlight filled my room, washing away the shadows. For a brief moment, it felt almost normal. I touched the wooden cross still lying on my nightstand, and made myself a silent promise. I won't let him destroy me. I will find a way out. I started writing little notes in a secret notebook I hid under my mattress. Plans, ideas, prayers. If I couldn't tell Mom with my voice, maybe I could one day show her with these pages. Each word I wrote gave me a tiny piece of power back, a reminder that my voice still existed, even if only in ink. For a few days, I clung to that secret strength. Uncle Tom's watchful eyes followed me, but I avoided him, staying close to neighbors' houses whenever I could, lingering at school longer than usual. Daniel stayed distant, his guilt growing heavier. But storms don't vanish. They only bide their time. One night I awoke to the smell of smoke. My heart leapt as I sat up in bed. I thought I was dreaming, but no, the air was thick, hazy. I rushed to the door, flung it open, and my worst fear became reality. Flames licked up the hallway walls, crackling and spitting. The fire alarm blared, shrill and deafening. And in the midst of the chaos, through the smoke, I saw him, Uncle Tom, standing calmly at the end of the hall, watching the fire spread. His lips curled into a smile. Flames roared up the hallway walls, orange and red, devouring everything in sight. The smoke clawed at my lungs, choking me as I stumbled back. My eyes burned, my throat felt raw, and the heat pressed against my skin like a furnace. And there he stood, Uncle Tom, calm, almost amused, watching me from the far end of the hall. His smile was cruel, his shadow flickering in the firelight. "Run, Sarah," he called over the crackle of flames. "Let's see how far you get." Terror surged through me. I darted into Grandma's old room, slamming the door shut. The wooden frame groaned as the fire crept closer. My eyes scanned the room desperately for a way out. The window. It was my only chance. I ran to it, coughing as the smoke thickened. My fingers fumbled with the latch until it finally gave way. The window creaked open, but when I looked down, my stomach dropped. The ground was 2 stories below. Jumping could mean broken bones. Or worse. Behind me, the door rattled. Uncle Tom's fists pounded against it. "Nowhere left to hide, girl." I grabbed the Bible from the nightstand and hugged it to my chest, tears streaming down my soot-stained cheeks. "Grandma, please," I whispered. "Help me." The pounding grew louder, the flames closer. My chest tightened, my vision swimming. For a moment, I thought of giving up, of letting the fire swallow me. Maybe that would be easier than facing him again. But then, I heard a voice. Faint, muffled, but real. "Sarah. Sarah, where are you?" It was my mother. She was home. Hope burst inside me like fresh air in my lungs. I climbed onto the window ledge, coughing violently. "Mom. I'm here," I screamed, my voice breaking through the smoke. I saw her below, eyes wide with terror as she spotted me through the flames. "Jump, Sarah. I'll catch you." Behind me, the door splintered. Uncle Tom's silhouette appeared in the smoke, knife glinting in his hand as he pushed through the burning doorway. And in that instant I had to decide, stay and face him, or jump into the unknown. I closed my eyes, whispered one last prayer and leapt. But halfway down, a hand shot out of the flames and grabbed my ankle. The night air rushed past my face as I leapt, the flames roaring behind me. For a heartbeat I thought I was free. But then fingers like iron clamped around my ankle. My body jerked violently, and I screamed as Uncle Tom yanked me back toward the fire. "Did you really think you could get away from me?" he snarled, smoke swirling around his face. His grip tightened, pulling me upward. The knife still gleamed in his other hand. "No," I cried, kicking wildly. My shoe slipped off, and my bare foot slammed into his face with all the strength I could muster. He howled in pain, his grip loosening just enough. I fell the rest of the way, crashing onto the ground below. Pain shot through my legs and back, but I was alive. My mother's arms were suddenly around me, pulling me close, her sobs breaking through the chaos. "Sarah! Oh my God, are you hurt?" The heat from the flames pushed us back as the fire devoured the upstairs. Cries from neighbors filled the street. Someone shouted to call the fire department. For a brief moment, I thought the nightmare was finally ending. But then I looked up. Through the flames, Uncle Tom stood at the broken window, blood trickling down his face from where I had kicked him. His eyes blazed hotter than the fire itself, and even as smoke poured around him, he didn't cough or stumble. He only smiled. "You can't hide from me, Sarah," he roared. His voice carried over the crackling flames, chilling me to the bone. "Not now. Not ever." The fire trucks arrived, spraying water, shouting orders, dragging hoses. Neighbors rushed my mother and me away from the burning house, wrapping us in blankets. The blaze lit the sky, turning the night into a hellish sunrise. The low came in the aftermath. I sat shivering under a blanket, clutching Grandma's scorched Bible that I had somehow held onto through it all. My mother rubbed my back, whispering, "It's okay, baby. It's over. He'll never hurt you again." But her words felt like lies. I knew he wasn't gone. I knew this was just another storm's eye, the calm before the next strike. And I was right. Because later that night, when the firefighters had nearly tamed the flames, one of them approached my mother with a grim face. "Ma'am, we searched the upstairs," he said. "We found signs someone was there." But he hesitated, glancing at me. "We didn't find a body." My stomach dropped. The fire had been strong enough to burn through walls, but it hadn't swallowed him. Uncle Tom was still alive. The firefighter's words echoed in my head long after he walked away. "We didn't find a body." Those 5 words became a chain around my heart. My mother tried to calm me, stroking my hair as I trembled under the blanket. "Don't listen to them, Sarah," she whispered. The fire was too strong. He couldn't have survived. But deep inside I knew. Monsters don't burn that easily. In the days that followed, we moved into a small apartment across town. It wasn't much. A single bedroom, peeling wallpaper and creaky floors, but it was safe, or at least that's what Mom said. She picked up extra shifts at the diner to cover the rent, promising that this was our fresh start. For a while the low gave me hope. At night I could finally sleep without hearing the floorboards creak under his steps. At school I even laughed once or twice with classmates. Mom tried to make things normal, cooking pancakes on Sundays, buying me a new journal to replace the one lost in the fire. But silence is never real. It's just the storm waiting to break again. One evening, about 2 weeks after the fire, I came home from school and found a note slipped under our apartment door. My name was scrawled across it in handwriting I knew too well. With shaking hands, I unfolded the paper. The words inside made my blood turn to ice. You can change the house, Sarah. But you can't change the game. I'll be seeing you soon. I dropped the note as though it had burned me. My breath came in ragged gasps. I wanted to scream for my mother, but when I turned, I saw her behind me, pale as a ghost, already holding the note. Her lips trembled. No, oh God, no. Before I could answer, the hallway lights flickered. The bulb above us buzzed, then went out. The corridor fell into shadow. And from the far end of the hall, beyond the flickering emergency light, I saw him. Uncle Tom. Standing there. Smiling. The dim hallway stretched like a tunnel between us. Uncle Tom stood at the far end, his shadow long against the flickering emergency light. His smile was slow, deliberate, like he'd been waiting for this moment. Miss me, Sarah? His voice slithered down the corridor, soft but sharp enough to cut through the silence. I froze, my body refusing to move. My mother gripped my arm so tightly it hurt. Don't look at him, she whispered. Get inside. Now. She shoved me into the apartment and slammed the door, locking every bolt with trembling hands. The silence that followed was unbearable. We pressed our ears against the wood, listening. Nothing. No footsteps. No breathing. For hours, we sat in that living room with the lights off, barely daring to whisper. But when morning came and we finally opened the door, the hallway was empty. No note. No shadow. Nothing. The low came as days passed. Mom reported everything to the police, but they looked at us with tired eyes. Are you sure it wasn't just some other tenant? One officer asked. After all, the man you're describing should have died in that fire. My mother's voice cracked with desperation. I know what I saw. He's alive. And he's coming for my daughter. But they didn't believe her. We were alone. Mom bought new locks, even nailed wooden boards across the bedroom windows. At night, she kept a knife under her pillow. I could see the exhaustion hollowing her face, but she never stopped trying to protect me. For a few nights, the quiet returned. I even began to believe maybe we'd been wrong. Maybe it really had just been my mind playing tricks. Until one night, I woke to the sound of something soft brushing against glass. First I thought it was the wind, but then I heard it again, slow, deliberate. A finger tracing the window. I sat up, my heart hammering. My mother stirred beside me, but before I could wake her, I saw it. A face. Pressed against the bedroom window from the outside, grinning. Uncle Tom. His face smeared against the glass, pale in the moonlight, teeth bared in that sick grin. Uncle Tom's eyes locked on mine, unblinking, as his finger traced slow circles on the window. I froze, every scream caught in my throat. My chest heaved, but no sound came. My mother stirred beside me, then followed my gaze. The moment she saw him, she gasped and grabbed my arm. Get back, she hissed. We scrambled off the bed. Mom snatched the knife from under her pillow and held it out with shaking hands. Leave us alone, she shouted through the glass. If you come in here, I swear I'll kill you. But Uncle Tom only chuckled, the sound muffled but clear. Then, like smoke vanishing, he slipped from view. For a moment, the silence was worse than seeing him. My heart pounded so loud I thought it might wake the neighbors. We waited, clutching each other, staring at the window. Nothing. No shadow. No sound. Hours seemed to crawl by until exhaustion dragged me down. Mom kept watch by the window, knife still in her grip. Eventually she whispered, "It's okay, baby. He's gone. He can't get in here. The low followed. For the next 2 days we lived like prisoners, curtains drawn, lights off at night, doors bolted. Every creak in the floorboards made me jump. But no more faces appeared at the window, no more notes slipped under the door. It was almost enough to make us believe we had imagined it. Almost. Because that third night, I woke to a sound I'll never forget. Not from the window this time. Not from the hallway. From inside the apartment. The soft, steady creak of footsteps on the living room floor. I held my breath listening. The steps moved slowly, deliberately, as though savoring each one. And then from the crack under my bedroom door, a shadow passed. He wasn't outside anymore. The shadow slid past the bottom of the bedroom door, long and jagged in the dim light. My breath caught in my throat. My mother's hand clamped over my mouth to silence me. Her other hand gripped the knife, so tightly her knuckles turned white. The footsteps came closer, slow and deliberate. He wasn't rushing. He wanted us to hear him. To know. Sarah. His voice oozed through the thin walls like poison. Did you really think moving would keep me away? Tears burned my eyes. My body trembled so hard the bed shook beneath me. My mother pressed a finger to her lips, urging me to stay quiet. The doorknob rattled once. Twice. Slowly, it began to turn. Stay behind me, Mom whispered. The door creaked open, just an inch. Then another. Uncle Tom's shadow loomed larger, stretching across the floor. The smell of smoke clung to him, thick and choking, like he carried the fire inside his very skin. Mom lunged. With a scream. She slammed the door shut and jammed the chair beneath the handle. The knob twisted violently from the other side, the door rattling on its hinges. His laughter seeped through the wood, low and mocking. You can't hide forever, little Sarah. We backed toward the window. Mom shoved it open, the night air rushing in. We have to go, she said, voice breaking. We'll climb down. I hesitated, looking back at the door. The pounding grew louder, harder. The chair scraped across the floor as the door began to give way. With no choice, I climbed out first, gripping the drainpipe as tightly as I could. My mother followed, still clutching the knife. The cold metal bit into my palms as we made our way down, inch by shaky inch. When our feet finally hit the ground, I almost collapsed in relief. We had escaped him. At least for tonight. That was the low, the fleeting breath of safety. But it didn't last. Because as we ran toward the streetlights, a sound froze me in my tracks. The squeal of tires. A black van pulled up at the curb, its headlights blinding. The side door slid open with a metallic screech. And there he was, Uncle Tom. Sitting inside. Waiting. He had known exactly where we would run. The van's headlights poured over us like prison spotlights. My feet froze against the pavement, my breath hitching in my throat. Uncle Tom sat in the passenger seat, his grin sharp and wild. His hand tapped on the door, as if daring me to come closer. Run if you want, Sarah. His voice boomed over the roar of the engine. You can't escape me. Go, my mother screamed, shoving me down the street. My legs jolted into motion, adrenaline tearing through me. We sprinted past rows of dark apartments, our shadows stretching long behind us. The van lurched forward, tires screeching as it sped beside us. A masked driver leaned out the window shouting, "Grab her!" Panic surged. My mother pulled me into a narrow alley, the van too wide to follow. Our footsteps slapped against the wet concrete, echoing through the night. I could still hear the van's engine revving, circling the block like a predator hunting its prey. We ducked behind a dumpster, both of us gasping for air. My chest burned, my legs shook, but for the first time that night the world fell quiet. The low came like a cruel trick. Mom hugged me tightly, whispering, "We did it. We lost him." Her tears soaked into my hair, warm against the cold night air. For a few moments I believed her. My breathing slowed. My trembling eased. Maybe, just maybe, we were safe. But then a voice came from the shadows. "You run fast for a little mouse." I turned, blood turning to ice. Uncle Tom stepped out from the darkness at the far end of the alley, the van engine rumbling behind him like a growl. His knife glinted under the streetlight. Mom pushed me behind her, gripping her own blade. Her voice was steady, though her hands shook. "If you touch her again, Tom, you'll leave this alley in a body bag." Uncle Tom's grin widened, He took a slow step forward, then another. And from the other end of the alley, a second figure appeared. It was Daniel. My brother. His eyes were hollow, his face pale. He didn't say a word. He only stared at me, then lowered his gaze in shame, before stepping to Uncle Tom's side. The sight of Daniel standing beside Uncle Tom crushed me harder than the fire. Harder than the van. My own brother. His shoulders slumped, his face shadowed, but he didn't move away. He didn't defend me. Uncle Tom draped an arm over him, as though he were a prized possession. Look at him, Sarah. He finally understands where he belongs. Family sticks together. My stomach churned. Daniel, please. My voice cracked, desperate. You don't have to do this. You're my brother. You're supposed to protect me. Daniel's jaw clenched, his fists balled tight. For a moment, I thought he might step toward me. But then he lowered his eyes, refusing to meet mine. Uncle Tom chuckled, his knife flashing in the alley light. See? He knows the truth. You're weak. You scream, you cry, you run. But Daniel is strong. He made his choice. No, my mother growled, stepping forward, knife raised. He didn't make a choice. You poisoned him. You broke him. The tension thickened, the air too heavy to breathe. Uncle Tom twirled his blade lazily, grinning. So what now, sister-in-law? You want to fight me? Here in front of the kids? Mom's eyes burned with fury. If that's what it takes to end this. She lunged. Their knives clashed, sparks flying as steel scraped against steel. The alley filled with the sound of metal, grunts, and shouts. I pressed back against the cold brick wall, frozen, watching the battle unfold. Mom fought like a cornered lioness, each strike fueled by years of rage and pain. For a moment, a brief, shining moment, I thought she could win. She slashed across his arm, blood darkening his sleeve. Uncle Tom staggered back, snarling. That was the low, the spark of hope. But it died as quickly as it came. Because Daniel moved. His hand shot out, grabbing Mom's wrist. I'm sorry, he whispered, tears streaming down his face. And before I could scream, he twisted her arm back, just enough for Uncle Tom to drive his knife forward. The blade sank deep. Mom gasped, her eyes wide with shock. Blood bloomed across her shirt as she collapsed to her knees. And oh, I screamed, my voice ripping through the night. Uncle Tom crouched beside her trembling body, wiping his blade clean. His grin stretched wide. And then he lifted his eyes to me. Your turn, Sarah. Your turn, Sarah. Uncle Tom's words cut deeper than the knife he held. My whole world blurred. The smell of blood. The sight of my mother gasping on the ground. The tears streaming down Daniel's face. My legs shook so badly I could barely stand. Please no. My voice was small, broken. Uncle Tom stepped closer, each footfall echoing against the alley walls. Don't beg. It doesn't suit you. Scream instead. I like you better that way. His blade gleamed inches from my face. But then something changed inside me. My fear cracked and in its place fire burned. I thought of Grandma's Bible, of her words, storms don't last forever. I thought of the notebook I had hidden under my mattress, the one where I promised myself I'd survive. I thought of my mother, bleeding but still alive, still fighting even after everything. I wasn't weak. I wasn't just prey. I was still here. When Uncle Tom lunged, I didn't cower. I grabbed the metal pipe lying beside the dumpster, and swung with all the strength in my body. The crack echoed down the alley as it connected with his skull. He stumbled, dropping the knife. For the first time, his grin faltered. Run, Sarah. Mom cried, her voice raw with pain. But I didn't run. Not this time. I grabbed the knife before Uncle Tom could reach it, my hands trembling. He roared, charging at me. And with a scream that came from the deepest part of my soul, I drove the blade forward. His eyes widened in shock, then slowly dimmed. His body collapsed onto the cold concrete, blood pooling around him. Silence fell. Daniel dropped to his knees, covering his face with shaking hands. What have I done? He sobbed. I knelt beside my mother, pressing my hands against her wound, tears streaming. Stay with me, Mom. Please. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder, closer. Neighbors had called the police. Help was finally coming. That was the end of Uncle Tom's reign of terror. But the scars remained. On my body. On my heart. On my family. Later, when the ambulance took us away and the police carried his lifeless form out of the alley, I realized something. I had survived the storm. And I wanted everyone listening to know this truth. No matter how deep the darkness gets, no matter how much pain you carry, you are stronger than you think. Evil can try to break you, but if you keep fighting, if you keep believing, you can make it out alive. The sirens faded into the distance, but the sound stayed in my ears long after. The alley was empty now, washed clean except for the stain burned into my memory, the place where Uncle Tom fell. Days turned into weeks. My mother healed slowly, her wound leaving a scar across her stomach. But she survived. Every time I looked at her, I reminded myself that we had one. Daniel, though, was different. He barely spoke. He spent hours staring out the window, his eyes hollow. One night he whispered through tears, "I don't deserve to be here. I helped him. I let him hurt you. I wanted to hate him. Part of me still did. But another part saw the broken boy behind his silence. Uncle Tom had poisoned him. Twisted him until he forgot who he was. Forgiveness didn't come easily, but I realized something important. If I let hate control me, then Uncle Tom still won. So I told him, "You're my brother. If you want to make it right, then stay alive. Be better." For the first time, he lifted his eyes to mine, and a flicker of hope passed between us. That was the quiet, painful process of healing. But storms don't end in silence. One evening, as I sat writing in my new journal, I heard a knock at the door. My mother froze, knife still never far from reach. Daniel stood tense, waiting. I opened the door slowly. On the step was a small package. No name. No return address. Just a single word written on top. Sarah. My hands trembled as I unwrapped it. Inside was a charred piece of wood, splintered, blackened. It was from our old house. And carved into it, with jagged letters, were the words. The carved words stared back at me. "The fire never ends." My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the charred wood. My mother snatched it from me, her face pale. "Who put this here?" she whispered, glancing down the hallway as though expecting to see him. Daniel stepped forward, his voice low and haunted. "It's him. I told you he wasn't gone. You can't kill the devil. Stop it." Mom snapped, though her own fear betrayed her trembling hands. "Tom is dead. I saw him fall. I saw the police take his body. But I knew. Deep inside, I knew the truth Daniel couldn't say out loud. Monsters don't die easy. And some scars don't stay buried." The next days blurred together. Mom tried to distract us, cooking, cleaning, pretending life was normal. Daniel started going to counseling, though he rarely spoke when he came home. And me, I wrote page after page in my journal, trying to untangle the knots in my chest. That was the low. For a moment we almost believed we could breathe again. That maybe the package was just a sick prank, some stranger's idea of a joke. But the storm wasn't over. One night I stayed late at school for a project. When the final bell rang and I stepped into the empty hallway, the world was too quiet. My footsteps echoed. Then I saw it. A locker near mine stood open, its door creaking slightly. Inside, taped to the back wall, was a photograph. It was of me, sleeping. The picture had been taken in my own bedroom. And scrawled across the bottom, in the same jagged handwriting, were the words, "Sweet dreams, Sarah." My fingers trembled as I pulled the photo from the locker. My own face stared back at me, lips parted, hair spread across the pillow. I was asleep, vulnerable, unaware. I dropped the picture as though it burned me. My heart hammered so loudly I could hear it echo in my ears. Someone had been inside our apartment, watching me, taking pictures. I ran to the principal's office, shoving the photo into his hands, my words tumbling over each other. "Please. Someone's stalking me. He's back. He was in my room. I don't know how, but he was there." The principal frowned, confused. "Sarah, slow down. Who's back?" "Uncle Tom." The words tore from my throat. "He's supposed to be dead, but he's not. He left this, he took this picture." His face softened in pity, not belief. "Sarah, you've been through a lot of trauma. Sometimes our minds." "I'm not imagining this," I screamed, tears spilling down my cheeks. "Look at the picture." He sighed and finally called the police. 2 officers came, glanced at the photo, and promised to look into it. But I saw it in their eyes. They didn't believe me. They thought I was broken, crazy. That was the low. Walking home later, I told myself maybe I was wrong. Maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it was some sick prank by kids at school. I clung to that thought like a life raft, forcing my breathing to slow. But when I stepped into our apartment, my blood froze. On the kitchen table sat another photograph. This time it wasn't me. It was my mother. The picture showed her standing at the sink that very morning, pouring coffee. The angle was from outside the window, and scrawled across the bottom in jagged letters. The picture shook in my hands. My mother at the kitchen sink, coffee in hand. The window frame around her face. The words carved across the bottom. Next time she won't wake up. My scream brought Mom and Daniel running. Mom grabbed the photo, her face draining of color. Daniel slammed his fist against the wall. He's in the neighborhood. He's watching us. Mom tried to stay strong, but her voice quivered. We'll call the police again. They'll have to take us seriously this time. The police came, collected the photo, and installed extra locks on our doors. We'll keep a car patrolling the area, one officer promised. But as the door closed behind them, silence fell. We all knew it wasn't enough. That was the low. The fragile hope. Mom moved us into the living room that night, pulling blankets onto the floor. We'll stay together, she said. No one's sleeping alone. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my heart pounding with every creak of the apartment. I tried to tell myself we were safe, that the locks would hold, that the nightmare would finally end. But then, a faint click, the sound of our front door unlocking. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. Daniel sat up slowly, eyes wide. Mom grabbed the knife she had kept beside her. The door swung open, and a shadow stepped into the room. "Miss me," a voice whispered. The shadow filled the doorway, tall and heavy. The outline so familiar my stomach twisted into knots. "Miss me," the voice whispered again. My mother gripped the knife with both hands. "Stay back," she screamed, her voice shaking but fierce. The figure stepped into the light. For a moment my world spun. It wasn't Uncle Tom. The man's hair was shorter, his face leaner, but his eyes were the same cold, cruel gray. Daniel gasped. "It's him, it's his son." The man smirked. "Name's Tyler. Uncle Tom was my father. And you?" His eyes landed on me. "Owe me for what you did to him." Rage boiled inside me, but fear pinned me in place. Mom lunged forward, slashing with the knife. Tyler dodged back, laughing. "Easy, lady. I'm not here to finish it tonight. Just wanted to say hello." He backed out the door before Daniel could move. "See you soon, Sarah," he called, disappearing into the night. The police arrived minutes later, but he was gone, like smoke. That was the low. The fragile calm after the storm. For the next few days, we barely slept. The police promised to increase surveillance, but we knew it meant nothing. Tyler was out there, circling, waiting. Then one afternoon, while I sat at my desk trying to study, I noticed something strange on the floor. A small red dot danced across my notebook. I froze. My chest tightened. Slowly, I turned my head toward the window. Across the street, in an abandoned building, a figure stood in the shadows. And in his hands was the unmistakable shape of a rifle. The red dot moved from my notebook to my chest. The red dot sat square on my chest. My breath caught, and my hands went numb. "Mom!" My voice cracked. "He's here." She turned, saw the glow on me, and screamed. "Down!" She yanked me off the chair just as a window pane shattered, glass exploding everywhere. A bullet tore through the wall inches above where my head had been. Daniel grabbed me by the arm, dragging me toward the hallway. Mom pressed against the floor, knife still in her hand as if that could fight a gun. Another shot ripped through the room. Plaster rained down on us. My heart pounded so loud I could barely hear anything else. We crawled toward the back door, glass crunching under our knees. Mom shoved me and Daniel outside into the dark alley, slamming the door behind us. "Run," she yelled. That was the low. The desperate, breathless escape. For a moment, we thought we'd lost him, that the night air meant safety. But then I saw it. At the far end of the alley, A car waited. Its engine purred, headlights dimmed. And behind the wheel, grinning through the glass, was Tyler. He rolled down the window, lifted a phone, and pressed it against his ear. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Hands trembling, I pulled it out and looked at the screen. A text appeared, glowing in the dark. The text glowed on my phone screen. No matter where you run, I will always find you. Tonight was just practice. My knees buckled. Mom grabbed the phone, her lips pressed tight. We're leaving. Right now. Daniel's voice shook. Where can we even go? He's everywhere. To the police station, Mom snapped. We'll stay there until they put him behind bars. We piled into a neighbor's car. She had heard the gunshots and offered to drive us. The streets blurred as we sped through the night, every shadow outside the window looking like Tyler. At the station, the officers took us into a secure room. One of them, Officer Miller, promised, "You're safe here. He can't reach you inside these walls." That was the low. For a few hours, safety wrapped around us like a blanket. Daniel even closed his eyes, dozing off for the first time in days. Mom held my hand tight, whispering, "We'll get through this. He can't touch us now." But safety is a fragile illusion. Around midnight, I noticed something strange. My backpack sat in the corner, right where I had dropped it when we arrived. But the zipper was open. I hadn't opened it. Heart pounding, I walked toward it, hands trembling. I pulled the flap back. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Scrawled across it in jagged handwriting were the words, "Walls can't stop me. Look up." I froze. Slowly, with every nerve in my body screaming, I lifted my eyes to the ceiling vent above me. Two gray eyes stared back through the slits. The air froze in my lungs. Two gray eyes peered down through the vent, unblinking. "Mom!" I whispered, my voice barely there. "He's here." Her head snapped up. She screamed. Daniel jumped to his feet, knocking over a chair. The officers rushed forward, guns drawn, as Tyler's laugh echoed through the vent. The metal grates rattled violently, then burst open. Dust and screws rained down as Tyler dropped into the room like a predator. His knife glinted in the fluorescent light. "Didn't I tell you?" he hissed, eyes fixed on me. "Walls can't stop me." Chaos exploded. Officer Miller tackled him, the two of them crashing against the wall. Another officer yanked me and Daniel back while Mom clutched the knife she had never let go of. Tyler slashed wildly, his blade grazing Miller's arm before two more officers piled on. It took 4 grown men to pin him down, his screams like an animal caught in a trap. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes as they snapped cold steel handcuffs around his wrists. That was the low. Relief. Hope. The monster was caught. But then, as they dragged him down the hallway, Tyler lifted his head and locked eyes with me. His bloody grin stretched across his face. "You think this ends with me?" he said. "There are more of us. Family doesn't die, Sarah. It multiplies." He laughed as they shoved him into a cell. And when the officers returned, pale and shaken, one of them handed my mother a note they'd found stuffed in his pocket. "My name is Sarah, I'm 55, and I've told you my story from the US. If you're still watching, don't forget to subscribe, like, and click the notification button for more upcoming stories. And tell me in the comments which part of the country you're watching from. I'd love to know. Because this story wasn't just about my pain. It was about survival. About finding light in the darkest place. And if I can survive, so can you.